Hi there. It's November 7th, 2022, the day before the election. I'm Alex Wallenwein, and this is the Woke Free Economy Report. And our subject today is not going to be the election, it's going to be you. Why you? Because without you, there is no election. Without you, there's nothing. My job is to convince you, to prove to you how much power you really have. With no gimmicks, no pep talking, just facts and the plain old truth. Now, all of us have learned to believe that our voice doesn't matter and we can do only so much. We're just one person. Unless we join a group, we can't really achieve very much. It's only in numbers that we can gain power, etc., etc. That's been the general story. And there's some truth to that. But without you, there is no we. Without you, there's no group. If you don't join it, that group doesn't have you in it, and you can't give it your input. Now, our goal in this country is to make things right again. We can't afford to let things slide and continue to go the way they have been. Why have things been going that way? Because we, you and me, have let them slide to the point where they are today. I know that's not a very comfortable thing to hear. Not a very uplifting thing to think about, but it's the truth. It has to start with us. It has to start with you. It has to start with me. If I don't do what I want you to do, you're not going to do what I want you to do. If I don't act on what I say, you're not going to do it, and nobody else is going to do it. Maybe I can successfully lie to you for a period, but not for very long. Eventually you're going to find me out, and you're just going to turn your head away and look somewhere else, because I'm just loading you up with a bunch of BS. Now, just coming back to your power. You alone. If you're an average American, I know that such a thing doesn't exist. There's nobody average anywhere in this country or anywhere else in the world. But it's a concept, and it's a nice concept to use sometimes. An average American spends about $60,000 a year? Well, they earn about $60,000 a year. I'm right in that bracket, I have to tell you. So I'm very average. I earn about that much and I spend almost as much. And what I don't spend, I save. Where do I spend that money? How and where do I save that money? Who benefits from my spending and from my saving and from my investing? That is the big question. Because what we need to realize is what's been happening to our country, what's been happening around the world, is not really the result of what politicians do and say. It's the result of what corporations do and say, because corporations buy politicians. Let's make it simple. It's not 100% true. It's not directly the truth, but it sums it up pretty good. Now, what corporations are we talking about? We're talking about all the big name, big brand corporations that you and I know that we spend our money on every day. The only exceptions maybe are public utilities and possibly, I don't know what, besides that. It doesn't matter what. Any money that we spend our dollars on, our hard-earned dollars, any corporations that we spend our hard-earned dollars on are woke. by definition, almost by definition, what is woke? Woke means they support woke causes, woke politicians, woke organizations. They drill their employees to think and act in a woke manner. They want their employees to toe the line and to go along with all this political correctness, CRT bullshit that they're drilling into us. And because we're afraid of our jobs, we're afraid for our jobs and don't want to lose our jobs, we go along with it and we act like we believe in that stuff. But do we really? And how much do we have to gain by playing along to get along versus standing up and saying, no more, I'm not going to do this anymore? Now let's forget about the jobs part. What we're spending our money on. When we go eat a burger, where do we go? McDonald's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A? Doesn't matter where we go. Chick-fil-A has the reputation of being conservative because they were sued by somebody who wanted to do them something. I don't know. I forgot what the story really was about, but there's a big controversy about it quite many years ago. And they have a reputation of being not woke or so-called conservative. They support BLM just like any other corporation. They teach CRT to their employees just like any other corporation. Same thing with Home Depot. Home Depot has the former owner or the founder of Home Depot has actually fought BLM unions or unions of employees or the attempt of employees to form a union in support of BLM. And he fought it off. But today, are they on the list of BLM supporters? You betcha, they sure are. You tell me, whatever it is, where do you spend your money? Where do you keep your money? What bank account do you have? Do you have Chase? Do you have Wells Fargo? Do you have Bank of America? Do you have Compass Bank? It doesn't matter what. You can look them up in the, I was almost going to say the woke free economy, in the World Economic Forum, the WEF. Look them up. Go down, all the way down to the bottom of the website and look for our partners and look at all the corporations that are listed there. Your bank, if there's a bank on there, your bank is going to be on there. Almost 100% sure. I recently left a fairly small bank to go to a very small local credit union just to avoid that problem. What's the problem with banks? Banks are the world's top corporations. They are controlled as could be. They are controlled by central banks, dependent on central banks. And the central banks are controlled by a very famous family that we're not going to talk about today. Investment products. Where do you invest your money? Do you have a mutual fund? Do you invest your money in stocks, in bonds, debentures, gold, silver? Where do you invest your money? If you're investing in gold and silver, you're doing pretty good. If you're investing in anything that has to do with stocks or bonds, especially corporate bonds, you're going to invest in a woke company, because all the ones that are big enough to issue stocks on the stock exchanges so you can buy them, the so-called publicly traded companies, they are woke, almost to a T, almost without exception. So, where do you buy your groceries? At Kroger's, at Walmart, at Randall's, at Safeway, at Publix? I don't know what the grocery store in your area is called. H-E-B. I'm here in Texas, so those are the ones I'm rattling off. They're woke. Look them up. There's an article that we're going to link to at the bottom of this video. And it's a list of about 269 corporations that directly support BLM. And it gives you the page that proves that they support BLM, where they have posted something relating to that on Facebook, on Twitter, or wherever, Instagram, wherever. Where do you go and get your entertainment? Do you watch Netflix? Do you go to the movies? Do you watch YouTube? What do you use to search for search results online? Do you use Google, Yahoo, Bing? It doesn't matter. They're woke. And if they're woke, what are they doing? They're supporting cultural Marxism. That's what they support. That's what they push. But they're not really Marxist or communist corporations, even though they push that. What they really are is fascist corporations. The definition of fascism is the uncomfortably close relationship between corporations and governments. That's the quintessential definition of fascism. And that's what we have today. And it's getting like that more and more and more. My point to you is that corporations rule and control governments because they are the ones who can pool their employees' money and donate it to the big politicians, donate it to the big foundations that fund politicians, politicians are using in order to do their little backdoor deals to get more money into their own pocket. Corporations are pushing laws. Corporations pay lawyers to write legislation that benefits them, and then they pay lobbyists in order to push that legislation, their whatever you want to call it, their golden grail, the holy grail legislation that they want in order to push their aims. Lobbyists are paid to sell those ideas, to sell those bills to politicians. And then politicians, because they want to earn the corporations' campaign contributions, are going to follow along and enact, in essence, some semblance of what these corporations want. Public interest groups, maybe they're not corporations directly, but who funds them? Where do you think all these Marxist corporations get their money from? I mean, these Marxist organizations. Sunrise, BLM, Antifa is not really an organization, but it is. It's really the boots on the ground of the woke establishment. They get their money from the big corporations. Now, why did these corporations turn and become the way they are? I will submit to you they've always been that way, but it's never showed that way. They've never shown their cards the way they do now. Right now they have to because they've been forced to lay their cards on the table. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. All major corporations today either produce today or have produced in communist China. Do you know what that means for a corporation? If you want to do anything in corporate China, in communist China, you're going to have to go by what Xi Jinping and the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, wants you to do. You have no choice. They control their country. They completely control their country. There's nothing that happens in their country without somebody paying homage to them, paying them under the table or above the table, and ending up doing what they want. Because that's the only condition you're going to be allowed to produce anything over there. Plus, of course, everything you build over there, after 10 years, it belongs to the Chinese, and you can go home and keep your profits, but everything you've invested belongs to them. Journalists are constantly coddled and rewarded for towing the woke communist fascist line by the CCP. They get free trips to China. They wine them there, they dine them, they give them awards, they probably set them up with hookers and maybe some pot, maybe some illegal sex with children on the side, excuse me, but that's what's happening. And they get dirt on them. They film them in doing so, and then later on they hold that over their heads. That's why literally all major establishment media journalists are bought and sold. They cannot report the truth. If they wanted to, they would be exposed or their families would die. That's how bad it is. Now, here is your power. I said we're going to talk about you. Here's your power. You're not part of that racket. You are not controlled by communist China. You are not controlled by this party or that party. You are not controlled by woke media or woke corporations. Unless you work for one, there's a fairly good chance you do. And if you do, then you know. But you have abilities. You have freedom to make your own decisions still and to do what's right, like nobody else who is high up in the establishment has. They are called powerful. We look at them as being powerful. They think they own the world, but they don't. They have it only on loan. And who do they borrow it from? No, not the banks, not the central banks, not even the Rothschilds. They borrow it from us. You and me. We are the ones who are paying them to do what they're doing. We are paying these companies to destroy our country. That doesn't sound very good. Nobody wants to hear that. But it means since we're doing that, we can decide not to do it. And that's where your power is. Nobody can do this. No government official can go out there and say, I'm going to withhold everything that I have from these companies. I'm going to spend it somewhere else. Politicians are not allowed to go out and pass legislation that straight up bankrupts corporations. Corporations are nominally private. They're not really private, but they're called private corporations, and they do have rights of private organizations in our legal system. You have absolutely no restrictions, not from the Constitution, not from any legislation, not even from any convention or tradition that would keep you from deciding to bankrupt all the woke corporations. As a matter of fact, you can bankrupt the entire woke economy. As long as you start, as long as you continue, as long as you find more and more ways to withhold money from them and spend it instead on patriot businesses. And it just so happens that the woke-free economy is really a business directory of patriot companies, nothing else. If we find out that any of the advertisers or the businesses listing on our directory are actually woke, we're going to remove them because we can. Nothing keeps us from doing that. We're not restricted by any law. We're allowed to discriminate in any way, shape, form, or fashion. We're not an employer. We're not discriminating against employees on the basis of sex, religion, whatever else, genetic makeup, whatever. We are a private business, a truly private business. We can do what we want. Nothing can stop us from doing that. Not legally. They can do it by force, but they can't do it legally. And you have the power to decide to join us. If you do that, then maybe and only then can you talk to your neighbor who might think the way you do, or maybe a few houses down the street where you live, or maybe somebody you work with, or maybe one of your friends, or maybe some of your family members. Only if you do this do you have any chance of convincing any of your friends, of your close associates, or of your like-minded people that you come across to do what you do. And when you do, that's where your power really shows. Your power truly is unlimited. You can decide to widen your circle of influence and to bring more and more people into this. You have the power to do that. Nobody can stop you from doing that. Freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. We still have all of these, and we do not depend on the government for them. Thankfully, today there are many people who are working on making sure that our freedom of speech, our constitutional liberties are preserved. They will not ever succeed in keeping those away from us.